Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. I am a day late, unfortunately, or fortunately, but we were planning to do the fans forum on Tuesday night because we know that's our usual night for fans forum, but we've put it back a night to Wednesday night. Maybe for the better. Maybe it's given us another 24 hours to get over the disappointment of Saturday's debacle against Crystal Palace. Maybe it's given us a little bit more time to reflect and look forward to the next 4 games. Is the top 5 race still on? Marcus Rashford, is he no more at Aston Villa? Chris Heck is now leaving Aston Villa. What does that mean for us? And numerous players linked out of Aston Villa and numerous players linked into Aston Villa. So there's so much to talk about tonight's show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're marching on to 6,000 subscribers. Thank you all for your support, and keep your comments and questions flowing in. We know, as you know, it's fans forum night, so your night to get your comments in. We've got Carrie in the house. We've got Rachel. Good evening to you. Stephen. Good evening. Patty. Good evening. James. Duncan. And Dave, good evening. And Lewis is here as well. Gary is here as well. Yes. And also, just before we get into the show, I think, first of all, massive well done to Villa women tonight, beating Arsenal 5-2. I don't know if anyone saw it. I don't know if you saw it on Sky, George, but a bit of a surprise performance. Fantastic. And they've won 3 in a row now. So massive well done to them, because Arsenal were going for the title. They needed a win to keep themselves in the title race, and Aston Villa absolutely spanked them. So brilliant result there for the Villa ladies team. Like I say, Matt, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, hello, mate. No, I didn't see it. Fair play. That's a really impressive result, isn't it? You know, I don't tend to watch much of it, if I'm honest, but you know, you keep an eye out from afar, and it seems to me like the season for them has been a bit of a struggle. So it's nice to see them finishing on a bit of a high, and hopefully, you know, that's a great result to beat Arsenal. You know, it's normally Arsenal, Chelsea, City, isn't it, are the 3 main women's teams. Yeah. So hopefully get a bit of a foot in, and hopefully they can have a better go next season.
Absolutely. So a team that maybe needs a bit of a pick me up is the men's team, the men's first team. And are you over Saturday? What are your feelings on it? Because you weren't on the pod that me and Kev did, maybe the therapy session that I think we were set up for on Sunday night. How are you feeling after that?
Yeah, it was a tough day for everyone involved, really, Saturday, wasn't it? You know, I was at the game like yourself, didn't manage to meet each other this time, but it was just one of them. The day just didn't really work out for anyone, for the fans, for the club, for the team. It was just a bit of a shit show, wasn't it? And just a disappointing one. I think we all fancied our chances, didn't we? Not to say that it was any kind of given, because it wasn't. No. You know, we know what Palace can do, especially to us. And we know what Sarr can do to us and Eze, and, you know, as it proved. But, you know, it's funny enough, after the game, I was actually okay. I kind of, me and Eddie just kind of took the game for what it was and thought, you know, it's just one of them. But as the last few days have passed, I've been getting more and more annoyed about it. Say annoyed, just disappointed, really. Deflated, if you were, Rich. You know, it just feels that we've had a great bit of momentum going the last sort of couple of months. And then just in the space of 3-4 days, hell of a lot of stuff seems to have gone against us. And, you know, and all of a sudden now, you know, the European dream's over, and it was a brilliant one at that. The cup dream is now over. You know, all our challengers for that Champions League spot are now winning their games, and everything's looking a bit tougher now. You know, now we've lost Rashford for the rest of the season, and that's probably the end of him. So, and as you said, Chris Heck now sort of saying he's off at the end of the season. So yeah, it's all gone a bit pear-shaped right at the death, mate.
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? This is the high-stakes game that Villa have found themselves in the last couple of seasons, although it's the Conference League, we were in the semi-finals of that last season. We've been in the quarterfinals of the Champions League this season. Obviously, we managed to qualify for the Champions League last season with a real pressure result against Arsenal and a pressure result at home against Liverpool. But these pressure moments this season is what you live for, but the stakes are so high, aren't they? And you kind of think, if you get knocked out in the semi-final at Wembley, you kind of wish you'd just got knocked out in the third round and just have done with it, don't you, sometimes?
That's one of them. I mean, I can't agree with that because I've said on here numerous times, haven't I, that I want it to just play out how it should play out.
Exactly.
And, we didn't do it simple as that. Fair play to Palace, and I hope they do well in the final. Yeah, it's just disappointing, isn't it? We get in so close, and the excitement, almost expectation. It kind of feels like the Unai era. It kind of, does it need a trophy or does it deserve a trophy? It feels like we're close to one, doesn't it? But when you get so far and it all goes wrong at the end, it kind of takes you back to them days under Martin O'Neill, doesn't it? When we were on the cusp of everything then and just kind of missed out. So yeah, it's only natural that we're going to be, it was a no-show from the side, wasn't it? So we have every right to be annoyed with the performance, as I'm sure Unai and the rest of the players were.
Exactly, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like I think Gary's put in the chat, shock, disappointment. And it was almost like weird how to feel. Like you said, coming out of the game, like it was kind of like, well, we absolutely got soundly beaten. We didn't play well. We didn't turn up. So what did we expect? It was like from the performance, it was like, well, we couldn't expect to get anything other than a defeat. But then after you kind of think about it more, it's like, what was the reason why so many players didn't turn up? Like, was it tactically? Was it freshness? What lack of freshness? Was it just freezing on the big stage? Was it no big characters in the side? Like, it's just so difficult to put your finger on it. And then if Villa are to go and let's say they beat Fulham, resounding victory back at Villa Park, then it becomes even more bizarre as to why they couldn't perform in that game, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't think anyone can put their exact finger on why and what went wrong. Just one thing that stuck out for me was when, I think I did say it on our group chat at the time, that rescheduling of that Man City game was just a really, really inconvenient and busy time for us. And I think it might have just been one fixture too many. I think we'd done 8 games in 24 days. That's 3 weeks. That's a hell of a lot of football. I know we've had a big schedule last season, but this club traditionally is not used to playing that many games. All right, we've got the squad there to do it, but we're not practiced at the rotation game, are we? So I think that, and the pressure games as well, you're thinking the 2 games against PSG, the emotional sort of how we got so close to catching up in that one, to then going and then battering Newcastle, the highs of that, and then rolling straight into Man City, which is just a bit of a nightmare game for us, season in, season out, and then getting done in the 94th minute. I think that might have just knocked the stuffing out of us all. And I just don't think we recovered in time. And I wonder whether they went into that Palace game just feeling a little bit sorry for themselves still after the disappointment, because that kind of put us on the, we'd gone from sort of looking like it was reasonably likely we were going to carry on to sort of, City then getting 3 ahead of us and things looking tough. So, no excuses, but that's just something I picked up on.
Yeah. Gary says, are the walls tumbling down, lads? What do you think?
I wouldn't go that far. No, it's as I just said, mate. It's just a few things that have all happened all at once, and it just feels that way, doesn't it? But we're not silly. We watch Villa every week. We've got a quality manager, and I don't want anyone to forget that. We've got quality players, and and we've had quite a lot of success in recent times. So we've just got to take it on the chin. Shit happens, and and we've seen some of that over the years. So I think we've just got to just get on with it and just see out and just try and see out the season and get back to winning ways for the next few weeks. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then that's what it is.
Massive thanks to J-Rig. One thing, George, you are always the rational voice on this pod, so we really appreciate you for that. Fantastic. Thank you, J-Rig, for your £10 super chat. As always, magnificent work. Love your thoughts on this show. Top man. Thank you, mate. For my 2 pence worth, whilst none of us are elite managers, when 90+% of your fan base say Mings was the answer, Mings was probably the answer.
Mings was 150% the answer. We all said it literally man for man on that chat on Saturday. Where is Mings? I was fully expecting him to play. It was an obvious game for him to put in. And if you're ever going to have a pop at Unai, you're going to say sometimes, it's been tried and tested against Palace over and over again, hasn't it? Pau Torres doesn't like Crystal Palace. And that game just wasn't a game for him. And I think he's rinsed and repeated the same thing a few times now and had his arse handed to him every time. That was Tyrone Mings' game. And I think if Unai's honest for himself, he would have done it differently the next time. Maybe he wouldn't, but he should have done.
Adam said he doesn't want to see Pau as part of that spine. But there's a few people in here very confident. Duncan said we'll get a trophy next season. Next year will be the true Emery team rather than the Dean Smith spine. Kevin said if Forest and City slip up tomorrow and Friday, it's quite feasible the top 5 is still on. I think the part of that, and we'll get onto that in a bit, because I think we'll move into the top 5 chat in a second, because lots of people talk about it. I think the point is it is kind of still in our hands in the sense of we've got to win every game, but the point is that we still then kind of relying on the other teams. Now we know other teams are playing each other in that top 5 race, so that does take off points on it. But yeah, it's getting very, very, it's real tightrope, isn't it? It is a real tightrope, but I'll get your thoughts in a minute. Gary says, just beat Fulham and take the Europa. Duncan said, we'll still make the top 5 in the Prem. Michael, as always, talking about his marathon. It is not over yet. 4 miles to go. Kevin believes it's not over. Adam just say, if we don't beat Fulham, then it's done. We need a statement win on Saturday. James in the chat says, how can it be over when we can still get more points than last season? And Kevin has already got his prediction, and he's predicting a 3-0 bashing of Fulham, which, as you say, why couldn't we do it again at Wembley? Yeah, exactly. But how do you feel about this top 5 race then? Again, we're calling it irrational, George. I'm imagining there'll be a very, very measured response to this. But we've got Fulham, Bournemouth, Tottenham, Man United. How are you feeling about the race for the top 5 with those 4 games to come?
Well, if you're thinking just from a Villa perspective, it's all about this one, isn't it? Because I'm just talking about how we felt after losing to Man City, rolling into how we felt playing against Palace. Now we've got to try and get over the disappointment of that against Fulham. So it all depends on the attitude of the players. It's a winnable game for sure. But at the same time, they've been pretty good this season and pretty good away from home from what I've seen. So I think it's a bit of a dangerous fixture, mate. And that's going to be a tough one. As well as Bournemouth, just underneath them. They've had a great season themselves. So that's 2 tough games. And then on paper, you're thinking they're the easy ones. And then it's Spurs and Man United. But the other 2 have been a disgrace this season, really, haven't they? They've been embarrassing. But at the same time, it's Man United at Old Trafford. And we know how that normally goes. And the Tottenham game I fancy because I just think Spurs this year, I can't believe how flaky they've been. I've argued the toss for Spurs so many times when I've seen Villa play them, because I think on their day they are such a good team, but I just think their attitude this year has absolutely stunk, and their fragility. I was in here the other night watching the Liverpool game with my mate Scouse, waiting to see Liverpool win the league. When Spurs went 1-0 up, I said to him, don't worry about it, you'll win this 4-5-1, because that's how soft they are. And, hour later, it's 5-1. So I think that's a win, that game, because they're going to be, possibly looking at a Europa League final. That's the be-all and end-all for Big Ange, isn't it? So I think them two are actually more winnable than the other 2. So I think we've obviously just got to do our bit. As you said, got to try and win all 4 and see what happens with the others. But for me, I just kind of think, our run's been a good one, but maybe it come a couple of weeks too early. And if we was to win all 4 in a row, our Premier League record is going to be something like what, 12 wins in 14 or something, and that just seems a little bit unrealistic. But if we do it, then brilliant, and we'll see what comes of it.
Exactly. Looking at Fulham's form, I mean, it's not a Fulham preview. We'll do that later on in the week, but just for the purposes of kind of talking about them being kind of a good side that can get good results, they've won 2 of the last 5 and they've lost the other 3. So, there's not too many draws in there of late. Villa have won 4 of the last 5. Obviously, the last one being the defeat against Man City, and the games just seem so involved at the moment, and they matter so much that it seems like forever ago that we managed to beat Newcastle. That seems like so long ago, but that was literally 2 games ago, and the game before the last one in the Premier League. And in an ordinary time, you go, you know what, we took Man City all of the way, and obviously lost in the last kick of the game. And you'd be like, okay, fine. But because the games matter so much, it's had such a body blow. It felt like such a body blow, didn't it? And that's the thing. But equally realizing that Newcastle were on the back of a 5-game winning run, turn up to Villa and we beat them. Villa were on the back of a 5-game winning run, go to Man City and we lose. It's so difficult to win, more than 5 games in a row in the Premier League. I don't know, other than maybe Liverpool, I know, and maybe Wolves actually, of many teams that have managed to do it this season, because it's so difficult to do.
Exactly, mate. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. That's why I think it's going to be hard for us to complete our part of the job, let alone rely on the other teams doing what they need to do for us as well. It's a competitive league. We've said it all season, haven't we? That whole top 10 this season has been pretty exciting. We've been at the bottom end of it, and we've challenged now at the sort of the business end of it as well. But on their day, any of them teams can beat each other, and that's kind of not what we need right now, is it?
Yeah. Danny says, boys, it's a big test of character the next 4 games. Players and coaches have to stand up. No excuses. And Watkins need to step up, says Duncan, in these 4 matches now with Rashford injured. We'll come to that in a second. Jerry said, with Mings approaching the twilight of his career, is Power the 100% first choice for that left centre-back position in seasons going forward? Well, I think we're going to talk like outgoings and potential outgoings shortly, but maybe there's a little bit more how Torres sort of chat there with regards to, whether he is going to be a stalwart for Villa next season, whether we might even listen to offers for him. I'd like your thoughts on that shortly. But yeah, I mean, Fulham, it does give us an opportunity though, doesn't it? Because, I know Forest playing Brentford tomorrow, as in Thursday. Actually, before I say, Geordie Toon for Life, thank you for jumping in. And yeah, great stuff, mate. Thank you for your support for the channel. Much, much appreciated. Forest have got Brentford tomorrow. Not an easy game at all. And we know how, teams can fall under pressure at different times. They got beaten against Man City. They put a lot into that game as well. How will they flip to react to going out of the FA Cup? Wolves are on a phenomenal run against Manchester City. You'd fancy Man City to win that still, but again, you just never know. Villa have the opportunity to play on the early kickoff on the Saturday, get off to a good start for the weekend. Then it's Brighton at home to Newcastle, which is a tough one. And Chelsea, I think, have a tough... I think, are they playing Everton, I want to say? Oh, no, they played Everton. Let me just have a look who they're playing. They are playing Liverpool. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, what Liverpool's going to turn up? Is it going to be a Liverpool that really want to finish the season strong, that don't want to lose any games? Or is it going to be a Liverpool that'll take the foot off the gas a little bit? So, yeah, Villa could, if they get a good result against Fulham, be on 60 points, be 2 points behind Newcastle ahead of their game with Brighton, and be, I think, is that a point or same points as Chelsea at that time? Were they playing Liverpool? So, we could be in a decent spot with a good result against Fulham.
Just got to do our bit, Rich. I mean, I'm one of these. The last couple of years, I've been very I take a lot of notice of that Opta supercomputer. And it's just only because last season they were on to Villa finishing top 4 so early. And, you know, we us fans, we went through the emotions the whole way through, didn't we? We were like, I remember I lost my head completely, didn't I? When we lost to Man United at home, I was like, we've blown it. It's gone. We've bottled jobs and all that. And throughout the season, a few of us had the same thing. But that Opta computer knew we were getting 4th, and it didn't disappoint. And I'm looking at it this year, and it's been low all season. But then obviously we pushed ourselves right into contention, and it was looking like we timed our run perfectly. But I just think that Forest win at Tottenham was a big blow to us, as well as Chelsea's win at Fulham. I just think 2 of them results there that you're thinking, oh, that could really go for us here, and you know, it did it. And I think we're down at about 11% now, and you know, I'm not writing it off, and I'm not trying to be negative, but
no, I appreciate it, and I agree. I agree to an extent. I'm just wondering have they taken into account the difficulty, the perceived difficulty of those fixtures, or are they taking into account obviously it's lots of things, but I'm just thinking because the other teams, I think Chelsea have got to play Newcastle and they've got to play Forest in their last 4 games, and they're playing Liverpool. Villa have got to play the 4 teams that aren't really in that race. So is it more likely that Villa win the 4 games than it is that Chelsea win the 4 games? I'm just trying to work that out.
I don't know, Rich. I'm not sure, mate. Everyone's got stuff to play for, though. Like Bournemouth and Fulham, they've got a chance of Europe still. You know, Conference League most probably, depending on what happens with Chelsea winning the Conference League or United Spurs winning the Europa League. So I think most teams have still got something to play for. I think we could drive ourselves mad with this.
Yeah.
We've just got to win our own games and hope for the best, don't we? I know that's not the exciting answer.
I said to you before we came on that I did the Loaded Mag show yesterday with the kind of top table talk, as they call it, the race for the Champions League spots, and we went through each fixture. And the ones that involved our clubs, we gave our kind of score prediction, and I think everyone pretty much agreed that Villa would get something like 10 points. I think a couple of people said we'd draw against Man United and draw against Bournemouth, but win the 2 home games. A few people said we'd beat Man United, but even with that 10 points, I couldn't find a way to get us into 5th. It would get us into 6th, because if Chelsea and Forest, whoever won that game, by the way we obviously it's us predicting the fixtures and the results, we don't know that, but by the way of us predicting based on who they're playing and the form, whoever won that game would jump into that top 5 position. Whoever, if they drew, then Forest, I think on that particular occasion, would beat us based on goal difference. And that's the other thing that is the problem, isn't it, George? Like, the goal difference is just too much for us to claw back.
Yeah, I mean, that's another point in my eyes. Simple fact is we've conceded too many goals this season, and it's took us too long this season to get our act together. I mean, in my book, as good exciting as the Champions League has been, our Premier League form, we've only really started hitting the gas about February, and the season started in August. So if we don't get it, we can obviously just look back to then. We didn't do enough in winnable games earlier on in the season, and we took us too long to cope with the juggling of all the games. So, we've come good now, but it might be too late. And if it's not too late, then, we've learned the lesson and we've got a little bit lucky, in my opinion.
2 points against Ipswich.
Yeah.
Last minute conceded against Bournemouth. Last minute, late goal conceded against West Ham at home. All these draws that we've had at home have been a real problem for us, haven't they? So that's
I put it down to that week where we lost at Wolves, drew at West Ham, drew with Ipswich, and then I said it right at that time. I was like, that was our chance to catapult ourselves in at a decent time. We didn't take it. We've moved ourselves in a bit later, but the games were running out, weren't they? So, you might still do it, but it's looking tough for me.
Paul the Octopus predicted 6th, says Gareth. Says Gary. And Barry says, would Europa League next year be better, as at least we can win that? How would you settle for Europa League next season, George?
If I was just being a fan and not worrying about finances and all that, like all of us have to, it feels like we have to nowadays, and we're scared of PSR and all that. But as a pure fan, yeah, of course, we're not above that. Jesus Christ, we've spent years without any kind of European football at all. Traditionally, back in like when we were kids, Rich, that was our level, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we were
UEFA Cup.
You were a UEFA Cup team most seasons.
Yeah.
And a lot of the fans' memories will go back to them days of Atletico Madrid,
Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, Deportivo La Coruña.
Yeah, losing to bloody Helsingborgs and all these teams we'd never heard of. It was fun ride, and that was about our level. So if it was to be the Europa League, then yeah, bring it on. It'd be great. Some more trips and some more, more stuff for us to talk about. But, obviously we want the Champions League. Now we've had a taste of it. Why wouldn't we want that again? But if it is to be Europa League, if it's to be Conference League, you take what you get, mate, don't you? Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people talking about, third season in a row with European football, that kind of thing. So it can't be sniffed at. Like you say, it's just sometimes the monetary situation comes into play too often.
Apparently, Rich, they were saying that if we do make Europe, that we'll be the first club outside the Big Six to make Europe 3 seasons in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So it's consistency, definitely. Duncan said, Phil King's winner still the best.
Mate, I tell you what, I remember I was about 10 years old, and I had to hide behind the sofa for his penalty. I was so engrossed in that moment and nervous, and I've just waited. Was it Kevin Keegan, I think, on the commentary, and he's just gone, yes. And I remember jumping. I think I was in my pajamas, jumping up and down, going mad, mate. Great days.
Alex says and a UEFA win would put us back into the Champions League. Yeah, as we know, Man United or Tottenham could be getting that, spawny gits as they are. And Gary says fans aren't bothered about finances. We want cups. Yeah. Geordie Toon for Life says, Rich, our last 26 games in all competitions, we've lost 6 and won 20. Our last draw was at home to Liverpool in early December. So, yeah, Newcastle, man, in frightening form. Maybe, though, Joe Linton out for the season. That could be a key player out for you guys. So you'll have to wait and see how that goes. And, I mean, we don't need to... We conceded on the first shot in 22 games this season. That's the keeper, not the defence. So we've got over 200 in the chat, people. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Let's get onto the kind of transfer rumours. The rumour mill is well and truly running at the moment. And today, the news has been reported, and I think by, pretty good sources. I think it's The Athletic and one or two others. Matt Law, I think, as well, and John Percy, who, very, very credible sources, George. Emi Martinez and Leon Bailey potentially getting offers from Saudi clubs. Now, first of all, your thoughts on these two, and then kind of beyond that, in a bit, we'll talk about the wider Aston Villa team. But, how do you feel about sort of Emi Martinez and Leon Bailey potentially being looking at for transfers?
Well, if you start with Bailey, you've got to look at what's he been with Villa now, probably 4 years, give or take. He's had his moments. Last season, absolutely superb. He was probably in the top 3 players in our season. But as a collective, really, as he's probably underperformed, I would say, and not really justified the big money we spent on him. Love him as a character. Love hearing him speak. Don't doubt his love for the club and his commitment. But, just a bit of a flaky winger who can flatter to deceive. And then at times when you're not expecting anything, like last week when he come on, late on, look really good. If they come in with silly money, I personally think that Emery was already planning on getting rid of Bailey, hence why Marlon's come in. I think Marlon is already Bailey's replacement. And I think Bailey will go, and you'll see a lot more of Marlon next season. But we'll see. With Emi Martinez, it's very hard to talk about him because we're all loyal to we're very loyal to Emi, aren't we? We all know how important he's been to this rise in the club, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. We've seen great moments from him, great commitment. But again, this season, it's not really gone that great for him, is he? He's his own harshest critic. He's come out and said a couple of times, I'm not doing so well this year. But if you were to lose him, you're losing a big character there, and you're losing a big fear factor, on the penalties. Just a big game player who's won stuff, won World Cups, he's won his big trophies, which is no good to us, really, him doing it for Argentina. But it builds up our profile, doesn't it? And I'd be sorry to see Martinez go, but, if we're going to have to sell, I think, with the PSR and what I read in the week about our finances. So, it all depends how much money comes in. Maybe he can go. Maybe Emery has got something else lined up in the goal, but, I don't know. What do you reckon, mate? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'll go to some comments first, and then I'll link that in with kind of what my thoughts are with them two and the wider Villa players that could potentially be moving in the squad. So let's have a look. Danny says, George, we need a bit of housekeeping. Squad needs a clean up. Duncan, David says, money talks and age. The fact of comments are flying through. Alex says, we have a great squad. We need Asensio and Eze and an up and coming centre back. We'll talk incomings in a second. Kevin does say we somehow sneak fifth. Martinez going nowhere. And James says Emi just needs a better competition and someone that can rotate with him. Adam says can't see Emi going to Saudi yet. He's too competitive. To me, and Justus says Emi not at his best this season, but he's a big part of our team as a player and as a voice. We can't continue to sell our best players. The team needs to have a core and it's counterproductive. Now, I can see Bailey going. I can certainly see that. And we've done deals across in Saudi already, so we seem to have a good relationship there. We seem to be able to generate good money. Obviously, Duran going and Moussa Diaby going, so I'd envisage Bailey going for more money than we paid for him, so a profit there. Emi Martinez, I think, moves into the category alongside a few other players that we have that are part of the first team squad that are probably at a decision time as to whether they stay with Aston Villa for the rest of their career, or whether they move on for their final big move. And I think Emi Martinez falls into this category, along with Ollie Watkins, Luca Dean, Matty Cash, possibly Boubacar Kamara, Pau Torres, and maybe even someone like Jacob Ramsey. I think this could be a bit of a transition summer for Aston Villa. Not necessarily down to PSR either. I think there's players there of high value that Villa will be looking to maybe move on because their value will drop as, if they stay for the next season or the next season. So they'll be looking to sell them at their potential highest value or a higher value than we could get in 2 or 3 or 4 years' time. I'm not saying all of those players will go, but I think 2 or 3 of those players will go to generate significant funds alongside selling some of the fringe players, some of the younger players like a Louis Barry, a Kane Kessler-Hayden, 1 or 2 others. And then obviously, Buendia, et cetera, who aren't going to be part of the squad. You've then got a significant sum of money to then be able to sign some other players that we know how Unai Emery operates, younger players that have played and have first team football that you can coach into a system that they can flourish, or kind of maybe a player that hasn't quite hit the heights at a certain club or sees value in a certain deal like a Daniel Marlin that he knows he can get something out of. So could Emi Martinez leave? Absolutely. But I equally wouldn't be as shocked for him to stay. But I think there's probably 6 or 7 players in that first team picture that if the right money comes in, I think they move on.
Yeah, that's interesting, Rich, mate, to be fair. I can't say I've pretty thought that through. It would make sense. I mean, that's what the kind of business model has been, isn't it, since these owners have come in? They've put a hell of a lot of money into Villa. We are basically bankrolled by our owners and always have been. The commercial stuff has caught up now and we're doing better, but we're still basically completely sole reliant on owners, and owners are, they're rich businessmen because they're good at making money, not continually losing it. we were at Villa, they're continually losing it. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you was to see a couple. Or if you flip it on its head, Rich, the only other way I can see it doing, or if we go down the Newcastle route, and the way we save our PSR is by keeping the squad together and maybe not signing anyone in the summer like they've done, and they've kind of gone, haven't they, for about 3 windows without changing anyone in their first team squad. Maybe this squad now, they're all at their, as you say, at the peaks of their power, and maybe you just run with them and see what that brings. Does that bring another Champions League campaign? Does that finally bring that trophy that everyone wants? Does that stability carry you through? I mean, I think either strategy, really, you could kind of understand what they were trying to do, right?
Yeah, I do. Again, I haven't looked at it that way, and potentially, if you're looking at, say, Amadou Onana, Ian Matson, one or two, Morgan Rogers, for example, who's still got development in him, a couple of players who haven't necessarily been as fit as they could have been this season. Jacob Ramsey hasn't played as many games as he maybe would have wanted to. One or two others in there as well that you think, what? Yes, with an extra season, a la Yuri Tillemans the season before, could come in and do something. I just think someone's talked about, the Palace game maybe being Gary said something has happened in the background and feels that heads will roll after the Palace.
I heard a few people saying that, yeah.
And look, they're always going to be annoyed after a defeat, but it does feel like a bit of a turn, a bit of a crossroads for one or two of the players, right? And it just feels like that. I don't know why, but it just does a little bit. And also, I think as great as the kiss of life that these loan players gave us, particularly Asensio and Rashford gave us, I still don't think it was ideal that Unai Emery wanted to sign loan players, because if he wanted to sign loan players, he would have done it at the start of the season like he did with Zaniolo and Longley. I don't think he really wanted to do it then. So I don't think he's the type that really wants to do that, because he knows that they're not going to be part of the squad. So that's an interesting one. So yeah, is he not going to sign anyone? I don't know, because I do feel like one of a Watkins, a Martinez, this Kamara contract business has died down. Is he going to sign? Does he feel like maybe Ramsey is kind of needs a fresh start? Would we actually push the boat out and sign Asensio and Rashford? Have they done enough to sign? Is it worth the 3 or 4 year outlay of a contract for them on big wages? I know what you'll say, but yeah, these are all decisions that he's going to have to make.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, them loans in January were basically, that was pure panic. It was like, shit, we're about 12th in the league here, and we're not going to get what we need to get. Emery knows we're reliant now on getting Europe for the outlay we've spent, especially on wages. We need to be up there now and getting European football for everything to work. So I think he's just gone to the board and said, look, I need a good injection here of something, because we're not going to do it. And fair play to them. They've delivered Rashford, who, you know what, fair play. I was very against that move when it happened, because I, from an outside perspective, I just didn't rate Rashford's attitude at all. But he's come in at Villa and shown me he's a bloody good player, isn't he? You can see the quality in him when he's played. That's one of the best centre forwards, stroke wingers, whatever you want to call him, that I've seen at Villa Park. He terrified PSG, didn't he? People are saying, oh, he only scored about 4 goals and most of them were penalties, but he's a man that can occupy a defence all on his own. And I think we've been lucky to have him in a Villa shirt. I think that one's not happening in the summer from all the news that's coming out that he wants to go to Barcelona or he only wants Champions League football, which is fine. He's come in, he's done his best for us. We've done our best for him. I say that loan move's worked out, whether we make it or not. I think it will just shake hands at the end and say, it was great. Asensio started off like a steam train, didn't he? He was popping up with assists or goals every game. It's dropped off a little bit since. I said I had Coutinho vibes about him from the start, and I'm starting to think I was right after all. And I just wonder at 29, 30, do we really want to be going down that route? I think maybe it might be both of them. Nice one, lads. It's been great seeing you in a Villa shirt, but we're going in another direction. So I'm not sure.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Asensio was great against Newcastle, and again, that was 2 games ago.
Yeah, I suppose. But better from the bench, Rich, right?
No, yeah. And I actually fully agree with you. I think.
Are we paying 200 grand a week for an impact?
Mate, it's such a gamble. It's such a gamble now, and even with Rashford, yes, no, the 40 million release clause is that, but you're talking a 90 to 100 million transfer outlay when you factor in the contract that he's going to want, and then you're not going to be able to get that back for him, anything like that back for him in terms of transfer. Now, are you getting 2 or 3 of the best years of him? Possibly. But would you hang your hat on him being fit all the whole time? Would you hang your hat on him being firing every game? And I'm not saying that every player's like that, but when you factor in that outlay, it's a hell of a lot. It's a hell of a lot.
Clubs like Villa can't. They've got to be guaranteed certs, haven't they, to be spending that money? Hence why Diaby was gone after a season.
Yeah. Alex says it all depends on what Euro competition Villa are in next season, on who we sign or release. Absolutely, I absolutely agree. Asensio is a super sub anyway. How many goals, assists does he have? It's crazy stats. It is crazy stats. It is. And it's interesting, isn't it? If he'd have maybe eased into his life at Villa and now he was scoring all the goals, we'd be like, oh, he's phenomenal. But because he started like a house on fire, maybe it's tailing off a little bit. He's still got a bit of time maybe to get a few goals, but yeah, it's just funny, isn't it? How it
he is a lovely footballer, absolutely beautiful footballer to watch.
He's brilliant. He is brilliant. Stephen says Uno really likes Rashford and his play. Wished he liked him on the left though. Yeah. Adam says he doesn't think Asensio has the legs anymore for a full season. And Gary seems to think he's only interested in the Champions League. Matt says we can't really complain with Rashford, and he hasn't said anything bad about Villa. No, he's been good. He's been really good. Flanges in the chat, and we shouted out the women's team before. 5-2 result, fantastic result for them. Great win against Arsenal. Ladies, Sai, good evening to you, mate. No problem for being late. Hit the like button on your way in though, mate. We've got nearly 250 in the chat, which is tremendous stuff. So please do all hit the like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel as well. And keep your comments flowing. So, outgoings is going to be an interesting one. And incomings, a lot of people talking about the right side of the team. So certainly right back. I think that's been the talk all year. Maybe Garcia is that player to come into it. I don't know. It seems like he's fallen out of a bit of favour with Unai Emery of late. Hasn't been used very often since that Nottingham Forest game. I don't think he's been used at all. And the goalkeeper, we've meant to be interested in Joan Garcia as potential replacement or understudy to Emi Martinez. And then obviously striker option. I think Mr. Green asked the question about if we were to sign a striker, who would you like to see? So first of all, are you in agreement that it's kind of the right-hand side striker and goalkeeper where we need to improve, George? And if it is striker, who would you want to see?
I guess. Yeah, obviously, like we just said about Rashford not signing, we probably are going to need another one, aren't we? Unless he's got the idea that Marlon's going to be your hybrid right winger forward backup, and Watkins stays for another couple of years or whatever. I don't know who I would be looking at to replace him if we were looking at a new number 9 as such. It's the strikers are hard to come by now from what I can see all around Europe. It's all about the number 10s now, isn't it? And the wide players scoring from there. And where are all the centre forwards? So I'm not sure. As for right back, it's a bit funny, really. I'm not sure. Is it a little blind spot? I think Matty Cash has had a reasonable, not a bad season. All right, he got a bit undone the other day at Palace, but I think he's done okay. He brought Nedeljkovic in, didn't he? We thought we had sort of reasonable high hopes for him, but he was out the door after about, not many games. Young Garcia, I think he's not just going to buy him for the hell of it, surely, is he? Hopefully, he's going to be slowly, he's only young, isn't he? Slowly sort of introduced a bit more and a bit often. I mean, he's come out of the side this year as the games have got more and more high pressure. And I think Unai just didn't want to take any risks, and Cash has tried and tested there. So I think that's probably why he's played. And he's also, he's tried to go with the centre back in Disasi at right back, which has worked sometimes and it hasn't worked in other times, has it? So, I think that's why you've not seen so much of him. But he's not going to be signing permanently by the looks of it, is he?
He's not. No.
Nah. So, yeah, maybe you are looking at another right back, whether it's the number 1 right back or a number 2 right back, is all to be seen.
Yeah, a few comments coming in. Duncan says Felix will sign this summer. He put it at 90%. We can't. João Felix is almost there with the JG, which we're not allowed to say on this podcast. He's almost at that level. Duncan also says Ramsdale would be a good number 2 goalkeeper, although he does have a record of taking teams down.
I was going to say that, mate.
So I wouldn't fancy that. Sells is a quality keeper from Forest, says Kevin. Although if they get Champions League football, I don't see him leaving there. Dean, you should go now, says Stephen. I think you would want that off the wage bill as well, wouldn't you, George?
It's a tough one with him, isn't it? He's most of this season, I would say, up until our good run of form, Dina was top 3 players in our team performance-wise this year. He's been great, but it's a long season and he's getting older. And we spent a lot of money on Maatsen. So really, Maatsen coming in should be no surprise to anyone, and Maatsen's, contributed quite a bit in recent weeks. But at the same time, he's suspect defensively, isn't he? Great going forward, great on the eye, but can he defend well enough?
Sometimes pace, he gets caught out, doesn't he? His positioning's good to help him get that extra yard, but there's times where he does get caught out a little bit, and sometimes in the tackle, I think he could be a little bit harder.
For sure, yeah. But Luca Dean, with every passing year, he's well into his 30s now. I think he must be 32. That's the outlay that we're paying. I mean, how long's he got left on his deal? Do we know?
I'm not sure. Sure.
From a business point of view, they're definitely going to be looking at getting him out of the club.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than later, aren't they? Yeah. Unless he's going to take a big wage reduction, which who does that?
No. Adam says cash is decent, but can be improved on for sure. Stephen's not a fan of Felix. Danny says he thinks Watkins should be cashing in on him. And yeah, the Dino boys are great, but not winners. Interesting one. HFD 1990 says we should go for Samu at Porto, whether or not Watkins goes. Kane Kessler plus Tristan Rowe also coming through, says Saye VFC. Kessler's had a great season by all accounts at Preston, but is he going to come straight through? I think you're probably looking at maybe that's added a couple of million onto his price tag. You're probably looking at 8 to 10 million, maybe a little bit less than that to sell, and that's great for PSR, isn't it? So, yeah, I think it's more likely that happens. Jordan Toonfly says you remind him of Bruce Grobbelaar with that cap on. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I like it.
We get up and start doing the legs.
Yeah. Good evening to Richo66 as well. Great to have you in. Power's been found out this season, says Mr. Green, because someone mentioned about it. Is it a time for a new centre-back partnership? We've already spoken about Mings being the main, being sort of how he didn't play on Saturday is really baffling. He makes Ezri Konsa better, but Mings can't play every game. We know that he's kind of playing 85-90% fit. So what is the situation with centre-backs? Do we need new centre? Because like you said, it doesn't look like we're going to sign Disasi. We already let Diego Carlos go. He put his eggs in the basket to sign that Loic Barde from Sevilla. Do we go back in for him? What do you see with the centre-back situation at Villa?
Yeah, Mings is kind of becoming our Martin Larsson, isn't he? We always felt with Larsson, if it was he was tremendous. I loved Larsson. Oh my God, what a great defender. And I love Tyrone Mings. I think under Unai Emery, I think people do not realise how well he has done for us. I can barely think of, other than him picking up the ball in Bruges, he has been almost faultless under Emery since he came. Because his problem was always the concentration, wasn't it? He used to just drift away in games. But under Unai has not let him do that. And I think he's been great, really, honestly. I really do. And if you listen back to our preview podcast at the start of the season, that was my big tip of the season, that Mings would come back into the team and play a massive part. And I think he's done that. So I'll stand correct on that one now.
I'll get the clips later. I'll get the clips for the end of season show. Don't worry.
Yeah, but, you know, as you say, he can't play every game. With Pau Torres, problem with him this year is that last year, everything kind of seemed to start with Pau, didn't it? The build-up to the goals, all the movements seemed to start with Pau Torres. This year, it doesn't seem to be so much like that. So if Pau Torres is not that king of the build-up, we all know he's not a great central defender, really, is he? He's not brave. He's not quick. His awareness isn't amazing either. So what is he really doing?
Great. Yeah, his communication doesn't seem great with Martinez either. Like, if you think of the number of times that Torres seems to be in front of Martinez when Martinez comes out and spills it, it's happened a lot.
Yeah.
It's happened a lot. So I don't understand why that seems to be happening.
No, I mean, last year he was great, wasn't he? I just think he's a footballer that happens to play in central defence, whereas Tyrone Mings is a proper centre back. He's a leader. He's got the organisation skills. He puts his head in where it needs to be, and he bloody defends. He just tackles, gets rid of the ball, doesn't he? He does what it says on the tin. You know, Pau Torres is like Unai Emery's pet, isn't he? So I can't see us selling him, but I think if they want the best out of Torres, they need to start getting him and setting off the moves again like we were last season. Because at the moment, we're not getting the best out of him and we are seeing the worst of him.
Yeah. Stephen says Pau is better in Europe. Mr. Green says Ezri Konsa looks like a completely different player with Mings alongside him. He's a lot more brave. I think that kind of sums it up, to be honest. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you look at all the bad results we've had this season, all the 3-0s, 4-1s. Tyrone Mings ain't played in none of them. It's Torres and Konsa near enough every time, or Konsa and one of Disasi or someone else. But Mings, I think he's lost 1 out of 18 games this season. I mean, that tells you all you need to know for me.
Yeah. Jay Riggs said earlier in relation to Pau standing in front of ME, they made 2 identical errors in the game against Brighton and PSG. 100%. I think I mentioned that the other night as well. Duncan does say Torres is still recovering from injury, though. But look, I don't know, man. You got to be. Some of the mistakes, I don't know whether they're down to injury or what. You stepping on the pitch, you got to be ready. You got to be ready. Anyway, it is going to be an interesting one in the summer, and I think, as lots of people have commented around about where we qualify and what competition we qualify, will determine a hell of a lot in terms of what we can do next season. Now, I think the finances Newcastle didn't buy, and they're able to buy this season because of the accounts that came out from when they were in the Champions League. So it might be that we can't make too many signings in this summer, but we can make more signings the next summer. What we have, though, is a number of players who we can sell for money, and we have a number of young players that we can sell for PSR, which maybe Newcastle didn't have. So I do think we're in a pretty good position with that, albeit we might have to maybe sell a potential prize asset. I say that with inverted commas. Finally, obviously, any questions that we haven't covered, we will come to the questions in the chat. And like I say, guys, please smash the like and hit the subscribe button. But Flange, you must have been reading my mind, because you've asked the question about the Chris Heck and whether we have any thoughts on it. And it was a bit of a surprise, I have to say, this morning when it came out that he was leaving at the end of the season. And then there was speculation about why and what happened, and we were obviously in the chat talking about it. But seems like he's just going to another job. He's been offered a job with Live Golf. Now, how do you feel? First of all, how do you feel about the job that Chris Heck's done and the kind of news that he's leaving at the end of the season?
Yeah, first of all, big shock, really. For everything we hear, like take the fans out of it. From a Villa perspective, all you see is commercial deal here, commercial deal there, record revenues, Adidas, Betano. Obviously the tickets, he's put them through the roof, all the corporate, all these grand plans for the North Stand, that's due to be started soon. So definitely wasn't expecting this. So I'd say, well, he's obviously he's got a better offer, basically, hasn't he? I hear he's going to live golf and he can be based back in America. I wouldn't say he was probably looking to leave, but sometimes if you get a better offer in life, you're going to go, aren't you? So, don't get me wrong, from the other side, from the fans' perspective, we've been very unhappy with him at stages this season, because he's this pursuit of Champions League football and upping our profile as a club as basically it's hit us hard in the pockets, hasn't it? We're all paying lots more for our season tickets, and there's been lots of changes, corporate faces in the away end and stuff, and we've been a bit unsettled. And I know that I don't think the transparency has been great, with the fans, but at the end of the day, his job from his point of view is get the money up, and he's done it well, and he's obviously done a good job. Otherwise, he wouldn't be getting a job with Liv, wouldn't he? So I'd say it's a loss from a Villa perspective, and I think it's something we could do without, because the season's about to finish, all the big business is about to happen, and then in the coming months, and we're without the main man. We're about to go into whatever they're going to do with the North Stand. He was obviously heavily involved with that. He's been in all the videos showing you what we're going to do and stuff. So it's a bit of upheaval that I think the owners could do without. But, we're going to have to see what they do, and they're obviously going to have to get someone else in.
Yeah, I wonder if they go promote internally or something like that with someone who's maybe been the kind of deputy at that, and then they know what's going on, and it's a bit of a succession plan. I'd be interested to see. Adamski said he's heading back to the US and taking his TIFO with him. Villaman Cloudy says Heck is a stepping stone type of guy who goes there off to the next, etc., etc. Yeah, I think that's what he's like, to be honest. Gary said commercial deal's fine, but not the fans' favourite. Adam said fans will not like Heck, but he came to make the club money, and that's what he's done, right? Yeah, I agree. He did most things well, says Matt, but putting the tickets up was very unpopular. Alex says, Live Golf, what a sellout. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. He's gone there. Sai says he's not bothered about Heck. He's priced him out of the season ticket year after year. After year on year traveling from Fleetwood, it's also him that's killing the atmosphere with tourists and screwing the normal fan. And I think that's part of that transition period from, being a European club, wanting to be bigger on the world stage almost, and kind of then not forgetting the heritage, not forgetting the fans that have kind of got you there. And that's been the real difficult balance, And also, I guess, sort of trying to repackage stuff that was just standard stuff and charging like 150 quid for it. Like the Holt suite that used to go in and get a free drink is now some sort of, what's it called, the lower grounds, and it's just the same building. It's like you're not getting anything else for it, and you're charging 150 quid for it. And the cells.
It's sold the soul to the devil, haven't we, mate?
Yeah, it's just.
But that's what all the top clubs do. So what else? Yeah, what else is he supposed to do? Not honestly, that I'm defending it, because
I know. But at least throw put some nicer. I don't know. Like it's just so strange. Like especially it's not London, is it? It's not. It's Aston. It's not. There's nothing there.
Yeah, exactly. We said all this, didn't we, at the start of the season?
If you took people on a bit of a tour around Birmingham, and then it was part of the game, and you went there, and and then you went back out and you had a meal and stuff, like, I could understand it. But taking people to the old Holt suite and just putting the next player in front of them for 10 minutes and giving them a burger and a few drinks is not my idea of a corporate experience. But hey ho, that's just me.
I don't think he was ever looking. Like, I remember saying this in a podcast as well. They don't. These new owners, especially the American owners, they're not looking at me and you and the season ticket holders. They're looking at people coming in there, different people, week after week after week, basically to replace us. They want someone buying a shirt every week, not just one in August. They want someone who's coming over on a trip, and he doesn't mind spending, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. They'll spend, £300 on a ticket or however much it is. The likes of us are going to become an inconvenience to them over the years, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, that what they see is exactly. So, they're building the warehouse, with the biggest bar in whatever, in Europe or whatever, I don't know, biggest football bar in Europe, whatever they want to call it. And then you've got the club shop that's been rebranded. Then you've got the fan zone, and then you'll have something else So what they see is like if a football going fan, whether that's me or you, or like you say, a tourist, they've got £150 in their pocket, whatever. They want all of that money to be spent at the club. They don't want people to go to the Witton Arms. They don't want people to go to the Aston Tavern or the Aston Inn. They want everyone to go to spend it in, the £30 in the warehouse, £50 in the club shop, like you say, £10 on the programme. Every bit of their money they want to see spent at the club. And like you said, a big proportion of that will be people who are attending for the first time or coming on a sports tour or something like that, and that's how, like you say, that's how they see it.
Before long, right? The atmosphere will be a thing of the past. The atmosphere will just be the tannoys. They'll have crowd noise. It'll all be artificial. You can see it in like WWE and stuff like that. The Americans can make the experience whatever they want just by technology. I think that's what you'll be looking at.
Yeah, we shall see. But I mean, just in general, how do you feel Heck has done? Has he been a net positive for the club, or would you say he's been a net negative?
Well, it's hard to say because for everything we've just said, it depends what side of the fence you sat on. Are you coming from the fans' perspective? Are you coming from what the club needs to do to get to the top levels perspective? If you're going from the first, you're not going to be happy. But if you're coming from like, Aston Villa are a bigger team, bigger club, bigger profile, bigger brand, all them buzzwords and all that, that bollocks, then yeah, he's done a great job. And hence why a big firm like Liv now will try to take him from us.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Like you said, there's lots of deals that have probably already been done. I wouldn't be surprised if the home kit is announced before the end of the season, because that club shop that's opening in the city centre. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do, a la Arsenal do and one or two other clubs do, where they announce the home kit, for the last home game of the season. So I'd certainly see something like that happening. And whether he's been tasked with finishing off a couple of projects before he moves on, I would imagine the sponsorship deals and all that sort of stuff have been done already. But yeah, that project, the warehouse project and the North Stand project, what happens with them would be really interesting to see, because obviously it's all about Euro 2028, isn't it? That the ground needs to be sorted, and I'm sure he was a big part of that. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes.
It's the same, Rich, isn't it? When Purslow went, he had the grand plans, didn't he? And this is my worry, that when Heck come in, he looked at Purslow's plans and kiboshed it. So what's the chances of the new guy coming in, looking at Heck's plans and kiboshing them? And then we miss out again. So as I said, I don't think it's an ideal situation whatsoever, but it's a completely out of our hands, isn't it? And the club will have to, someone else will have to take a hands-on approach and get it all over the line for us.
Yeah. Well, mate, I think it's been a really good fans forum. I'm kind of glad we moved it to Wednesday, because it gives us even more stuff to talk about. And I'm sure there'll be even more news tomorrow. Morgan Rogers is apparently going to Chelsea, and there'll be Yuri Tillemans tomorrow going somewhere. So I'm sure all of our players will be sold at some point. So we'll see about that. But we'll be back later this week to discuss the Fulham game coming up on Saturday. We must get the win, get us back on track, at least to be in the spot of the top 5 race. George, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Some amazing comments, amazing questions. We love all of your interaction. Please do hit the like button and hit the subscribe button on your way out if you haven't already. Help us continue on the road to 6K. I also did a little transfer talk video discussing Emi Martinez, Leon Bailey, Joan Garcia, and Ebericha Eze. So take a look at that video as well when you get the chance. Like I say, we'll be back later this week with a Fulham preview. Hopefully a Fulham successful match reaction as well. Talking tactics back with Gareth coming up as well later this week. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we'll follow the Villa.